Today's speaker is Professor Michael Dowling. Michael is full professor of finance at DCU Business School. He has published widely in leading international journals, and his research concentrates on aspects of financial technology, understanding financial behaviour, and applying data science techniques to finance. His current research interests are very much at the intersection of research and industry, especially around financial technology. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I've noticed I've made the early decision to wear a white T-shirt against a white background, so I may just appear like a floating head. But let's not let that distract us.
We can see you fine. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. So I've just sent a small request for. Oh, there we are. So I'm actually currently at Web Summit in Lisbon, and it's amazing as you walk around the halls here. It's just hundreds of startups and large companies that are exploring how AI changes the organization. It's really, I don't know, it's quite a fascinating time in terms of this huge conviction that AI changes everything and the excitement around it. What I'm going to do is I've got a very quick explanation for AI, but then I'm just going to show you some specific tools I've designed for this talk that you can use. They've all been made public, so you can take them away and use them. And what I've tried to focus on, because I'm a professor of financial technology. I'm also funded by Enterprise Ireland for a startup that's working with banks to help improve how small businesses essentially their financial comfort, their comfort around numbers, and working out reliable plans for growing, for managing costs. So a huge part about that is really about like using the existing tools that are out there, but then in a way that people feel comfortable. So let me start just really super briefly with an amazing sentence, which is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This is if you were learning typing in the 1960s, this would be one of your favorite sentences. It's a sentence that contains every word in the English alphabet only once. So it was used to check typist skills and speed. So let's just take that sentence for a moment. The quick brown, first three words, and then take the next, shift everything forward one, and then we have quick brown fox, and then brown fox jumps over. This is the way that all generative AI has been trained. You have a starting sequence on one side as an input, and then as an output, you have what comes next. And essentially, all generative AI models have been trained on not just one sentence, but on trillions of sentences of how language works, of how sentences work. The quick brown should be followed by quick brown fox, and so you're training the model to predict the next in the sequence. It's not just words. If you train a model with trillions of words, you end up with a ChatGPT. If you were to take every movie in the world and break it down to every single picture that's within a movie, and you have a sequence then of pictures, and the collection of pictures makes up the movie. If you train this underlying technology with those sequences of pictures, the model will be able to design movies. It'll work out the logic behind movies. It's not just the exact things you train the model on. The model, the Transformers model, learns in general how to put together a sequence. It learns intelligence, and it learns it in the same way as babies learn how words come together. Like, babies don't sit in a class and be taught, here's how words work. They just pick up sequences from those around them. And that same intellectual approach is used to train all generative AI. I think it's kind of fascinating, because you can then think away from not just ChatGPT to all manners of things. You could think, if you train a model in enough sequences of numbers, it can predict what number comes next. If you train a model in business reasoning, what are the steps to making a successful business decision? If you train a model in those sequences that people should follow for business success, then the model becomes brilliant at predicting, at enabling business success. And this is the general idea of generative AI. So it's like, everyone's seen ChatGPT. There's another great example called Claude, which is backed by Amazon, and is particularly well rated at the moment. It seems a bit better than ChatGPT, and Google has its option as well. There are in Web Summit today, there are hundreds and maybe thousands of small startups that are proposing unique solutions. But today we're just going to talk about these big hitters that everybody probably already has access to. Google Gemini. You just go to gemini.google.com. ChatGPT is open to everyone. Claude is open to everyone. So we're just focusing on the big open tools. The big question is should I be trusting these models with my business intelligence? Because we're going to go through a few different applications to business intelligence in a moment. One way of measuring smartness is by IQ. It has its detractors, but it has stood a bit the test of time. And if you look at, say, ChatGPT, it has a measured IQ of around about 90. What that means is that about 75% of people all around the world are smarter than ChatGPT. So it's not hugely smart, and it's probably not the usual person that you would turn to for life advice. The big jump, and you'll see this from the end of the graph here, is the O1 model, and this is the newest model from OpenAI. It's not yet available on a free account. It's only available if you pay €20 a month. And this has a measured IQ of 120. What this means is the O1 model is smarter than 90% of people in the world. It has a top 10% IQ on everything. And this is why people are so excited about generative AI. They can look at current GPT-4 models and go, oh, it's making up court cases and it's making up whatever. But we know the trajectory these models are on. The O1 model released about a month ago is already one of the smartest people you could ever talk to. And this isn't even the full version of the O1 model. The full version has been released next month and will probably have an IQ between 130 and 140, making it one of the smartest people in the world if it was a person, which of course we keep needing to remind ourselves it's not. So that opens the possibility of what do you do if you can ask unlimited questions of the smartest person in the world. And it's smart at everything. It's not just like human smart, where someone might be smart at some individual thing. It's smart the smartest person at everything. And what do we do in 2 years' time when the models have an IQ of 200, where literally nobody in history has ever been as smart as these models? And that's the transformative effect of these models, that we're going there, we will arrive there, and this will be available for everybody. So how can this then, if you're a business, how can this help you get the smartest answers to the biggest questions you can think that will benefit your business? There's a few different levels of generative AI. There's the chatbots, ChatGPT, and that's broadly where, if you've used ChatGPT over the last year and a half, you've used the chatbot. And this is the most basic level of generative AI that we will ever see. And it's almost vanishing now. The next level is reasoning. That's what the O1 model is. This is going to unlock pretty much perfect reasoning for any scenario you could be presented with. The perfect reasoner, not just repeating a sequence, the quick brown fox, the auto-completion, but actually being able to think through problems and arrive at the most logical conclusions. And I'll show an example of that in a moment. But this level is likely to be reached by the end of this year, and we'll be moving on to the next level, which is agents. Agents are generative AI that will go out and do things for you. I was at the OpenAI Developer Day last 2 weeks ago, and Sam Altman was the boss of OpenAI. He was talking there about this idea about every company, in his view, will have their own agent that can go out and negotiate on their behalf, that can talk to suppliers, that can talk to customers, that can run their finances, run their legals, do everything for them. And all the company is doing is the company is training up the agent. And then the agent, this AI agent, is out there carrying out all their tasks for them. Like this is something we couldn't even have imagined 3 years ago, and it's almost here. It's astonishing. And then, just for the sake of completion, the higher levels of AI, which are a few years away, is innovators, which is AI that's able to make scientific discoveries that humans haven't been able to unlock the mysteries of the world of science and make brand new discoveries. And then the last level, which I've denoted as GULP, is when AI are capable of running organizations. And hopefully, fingers crossed, they will let us work for them. So let's stick away from the more ominous step 5 and look at some of the promise of the lower levels. So the last thing I want to show before we get into, because I've designed some things that are of practical use, is the question of how reliable is generative AI. And it often comes up, this idea of hallucination. Hallucination is where the model says something confidently and is confidently wrong. It can sometimes make things up. And the big way of understanding this, and there's a positive message at the end of this slide, is that as we increase model intelligence and as we increase the amount of knowledge that we give to a model, we're highly unlikely to see hallucination going forward. So if you've got a low intelligence model, like some of those original models that were released a year and a half ago, and you're just asking it a question, it will probably make something up. If you've got high model intelligence, low knowledge, high knowledge, low intelligence, it's now quite unlikely to make things up. And then if you've got high intelligence and high knowledge, then you're grand. But every form of intelligence makes mistakes. So at the level of the current models, if you're using the most advanced models, And if you're providing the right types of source knowledge, the right PDFs, etc., to the models, then you're almost certainly fine. So what are the quick wins for generative AI in finance? So the first is financial research and planning using reasoning skills. I'm going to show an example of this in action. Second is the mundane day-to-day nonsense of paperwork flowing back and forth between the company and other organizations. And the information is never in the format that we need. So how can we, with a structured way, get information from receipts and invoices? I'll show you something I created for that you can use then afterwards. And this is the big thing that we're working on with the banks, is the banks for about the last 200 years have been sending either paper or now electronic statements of all of your transactions, and none of us really know what to do with those statements. So do we look at them? Do we see if anything jumps out? But the statements don't tell us the story of our finances. They tell us the spreadsheet of our finances. So how might we work on visualizing our finances in a way that makes sense to us? And lastly, then, it's the idea of, well, even visuals, even charts are not the normal way in which we tell stories. The way we tell stories is the way we have told stories for tens of thousands of years. Is round the fireplace, people, older generations passing on stories to younger generations. This form of storytelling is how we've always understood the world and how we've understood society and how we should make decisions. So how can we create the story of our finances and move away from things like the spreadsheet of our finances? Sorry, just that last one, that will be on my LinkedIn account after this. So let me now show you. So I have created a little story here of a business, and we're going to follow the story of the business throughout today. And please, if at any point anyone wants to type a question or anything, please do so. So I've a story here of O'Sullivan's Bakery, which has 2 locations in Galway, Ayr Square and Salt Hill, and 12 staff, etc. So just the normal type of business. Normal type of business is probably under quite a bit of strain at the moment with the increase in the price of flour and the, things like staff costs, etc. And I've included also some company numbers here about what are the main costs, food waste, peak hours, etc. And I've set a challenge down here, which is that the company has low profit margin, and they think it's caused by these few particular reasons, and that the model is an expert business coach with 20 years of senior experience in Ireland, and is going to come up with a 1-month plan for addressing the key weaknesses of the business. What I'm showing here is something straightforward, something that can be done immediately by anybody, is rather than just asking a question like we would ask a question of Google of how do I increase my profit, is I've laid this out with a lot of information about this company, like the type of information that a company would have about itself. So this is going back to the chart. We are providing increased knowledge to the model. On the other side, we're also going to use the O1 reasoning model, which is specifically capable of working out plans and goals and things to implement. So we're just going to copy this entire thing, and we're using the O1 preview model. Working out the company plan. Just paste everything in here. And one of the things I want to show here is how this model works and why it is completely different to ChatGPT. So you see here, the model has broken down the challenge I've set it into all these different steps. How do you craft a plan? What does the approach look like? What does the strategy? How do we break that strategy down into plans? And how do we refine it? So it has taught for 31 seconds. ChatGPT will respond to you in an instant. This is a model that takes time to think and work out how exactly should I best reason. And so we'll see here that it's broken it down into 4 weekly themes that the business can address. So in week 1, we want to reduce food waste. So our target is reduce food waste from 15% to 7%. Food waste in a bakery is in general a huge cost. And so it's put this as the priority point. The actions: produce a waste audit, production schedules, pre-order and reservation systems where there's specialty items that if they're not bought are likely to go to waste, that there would be a pre-order and reservation system, and then partner with local charities to do some good and maybe have that as a tax deduction. And it's then linked that then into the financial outcomes. And then it goes on, week 2, energy efficiency, optimizing staffing and scheduling, and expanding revenue streams and cost control. And so this was, we're using a model with a top 10% IQ, and we're giving it a lot of guidance on what our situation is, and then we get this really detailed plan that we can legitimately follow. And so that is the first thing I wanted to point out about how we can extract greater core knowledge from these things. So that ChatGPT, the O1 preview model, it's only available if you spend €20 a month, I think, but it's the difference between a bottom 25% IQ and a top 10% IQ, and it's specifically about reasoning. The next thing I want to show you is I've created an invoice here. So just it's a standard invoice where I was remembering from my childhood where my mum ran a bakery that I think Odlums were a big feature of her purchasing life. And we have so just a standard invoice with all the various costs. And these are the types of invoices flow in and out of the organization every day. So what I've done is I have created a custom AI. And so anyone can use this. You just search for this custom GPT on Invoice Check, and I'll include a link on LinkedIn. And let me, so in the back of this, I've essentially included a whole lot of code about what it should and shouldn't do. And maybe there's some complexity here of exactly how we want the data to be extracted. But if you are on a daily basis doing the same task over and over again, then you can create your own custom AI that will carry out a task for you. So let me just load to here, and it was Odlum's invoice. And this will work with any invoice. It's not specific to this invoice. Process this invoice and extract information. So what it's first of all doing, and this bit I guess might look a little bit foreign, is it's extracting all the numbers from this in a structured way. So we can then use that to bring something like this into Excel. So extracting the invoice number, the issue data. It can read any document. That was a PDF I uploaded. It can read a picture. It can read anything. It's recording the currency, payment, who is the seller, what's their address, what are their payment details, and then what are the items. So quantity, how the quantity is measured, unit price, subtotal, tax rate, etc. And then underneath, it has created something that you can paste in to Excel of all of the items. And this will work for any invoice. So now in terms of like getting just that mundanity of invoice processing, it's done. It's over. You can use that time for better. You can use that time better. I think things like this are fascinating because these are the types of things that just, they're the constant irritations. Anything where now it's anything where you do it more than 5 times a month and it involves a document, you can automate it. And you should be automating it because probably if you're not automating it, the business around the corner is automating it. And they're then using that time to work out ways to outsmart you. So therein lies I don't know if the right analogy is chicken and egg, but there's some sort of analogy there that's appropriate. Okay, so now we've come up with a plan. We've worked out how to get rid of that annoying paperwork, and now moving on to our core measure, our scorecard of how we're doing every month. That scorecard is our bank statement. Is the bank account increasing? Is the bank balance increasing? Is it decreasing? Are we investing in things, or are we just treading water? And you'll get this, obviously, as you know, you get this big long bank statement, but all of these transactions broken down into it, and it's too long to make sense of it. So I generated a fake bank account statement here for O'Sullivan's, and it has things like open balance, closing balance, and it has all types of transactions here. Some of these are unrealistic. Just to be clear, things like that the bakery is regularly selling €700 cake orders. So unless it's, but this is probably an aggregation of multiple sales from the sum up machine. So let's look at what we can do with this. So I've uploaded this to Claude. That's Claude.ai. I uploaded the statement and I said, can you run useful visuals for a business owner based on this bank statement? And here's what it has created for us. There's breakdown by categories, our daily map, our key metrics. We can add any type of metrics that we want here, and it'll be there. And the fascinating thing here is that banks have spent so many hundreds of millions on their bank apps, and we still don't have this type of insight into our personal banking or our business banking. It just doesn't exist. But now we can take matters into our own hands. Just upload our statement, and request visuals, and then this is then working code that in future months you can upload new statements, and it'll break it down as well. So if you've a particular thing you want to keep an eye on, let's say you're putting a particular focus into the Salt Hill Bakery, you might want to have a separate analysis of the Salt Hill Bakery that wouldn't be obvious from a big statement, but that this type of generative AI is capable of just focusing on whatever suits you. It's not what the bank has decided is the most important thing for you. It's what you've decided. You are empowered in terms of your level of insights. And so the last thing I've done is a little bit gimmicky, but I think it previews the future, even though it's gimmicky. And it's something called Notebook LM. So Notebook LM is a Google service. So all these services, ChatGPT, Claude AI, and and Google Notebook, these are all easily accessible services rather than looking at specialist services. And what I did here was I uploaded the description of O'Sullivan's Bakery and the bank statement that we've just looked at. And I simply, I gave it some little bit of instructions, and I asked it to generate a podcast focusing on what our bank statement says, what our bank statement tells us in relation to our overall goal. So I'm just going to play less than a minute of this, just so you can see what's been done here. And the idea is, imagine a situation where every morning or every Sunday, for example, when you have a bit of quiet time, you're going out for a walk, and you just have a short podcast where people are discussing, how was your week in business? And it's bringing in all of your transactions, and it's bringing in perhaps all of your emails, all of your documents created. And it's just giving you a little personalized podcast of these two AI characters just going, let's look at the week. There's like TV shows like This Week in Politics, wherever it looks back at the last week of politics. And why can't we all have a podcast like that recaps our life? And so we're not just managing along, that there's these kind of pause points where somebody, or in this case, something, is just going, let's sit back and let's look at where we are. And then based on that, let's plan for where we're going. I think these things are deeply fascinating in terms of how they're going to change how we think about business and about the help and support that we have, the ways in which we can build financial comfort, the ways in which we can really draw on strong intellects to plan our journey, so that we're not just stumbling along, but really we know where we're going, and that ends up giving us a lot of comfort, and especially for small businesses, where really the small business is this mixture of the person and the business, and the identities are so closely entwined with one another, and it's existential. If the business doesn't work, that's almost critical for the person, because everything is all tied together. And so being able to think about these supports is a huge thing in terms of how we can design a more comfortable future. So anyway, that's my talk. Thank you very much for listening. And if there's any questions at this point, it would be amazing to answer about anything, really.
Thanks so much, Michael. It was truly fascinating to listen to. We have one question already from Arash, and he's wondering whether your codes and algorithms are open source, and if not open sourced, how are they legally protected against reproduction?
Yeah, so well, I've designed everything here to be open, so anybody can use these codes afterwards. So the invoice checker is just anyone can just use that on ChatGPT. The Notebook LLM will share that on LinkedIn. And then the other things are all open source. Yeah, I think it's now in terms of if this is a question of if you were creating these some sort of code and you wanted to protect it, I think that so it's maybe almost at the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe like the startups here in Web Summit. I would say it's a bit of a at this stage, I would say it's a bit of a fool's errand trying to protect code because it's moving so quickly. There will come a point, like there is in all industry, when you want to lock down what can be shared with the public and what can't. But at this stage, you're probably more likely to get good feedback than share a critical secret. Would be my thought, which is one of many thoughts. Other people would have different thoughts.
Thank you, Michael. We have another question from Mairead. What is your advice with respect to selection of AI tools? Should we try free versions first and then make a decision? And what would be your advice?
I would say pay the €20 a month for ChatGPT. It's that O1 reasoning model is it's a game changer. Like it's as I gave the thing in the presentation there, it's the difference between talking to a bottom 25% intellect and a top 10% intellect, and we've all spent enough time talking to both groups of people to know who's more likely to give us useful advice, really. So ChatGPT is the way to go. Claude is really good, but Claude is kind of more focused on people who are developers. So it's kind of like coders type thing, and then Google's just not at the race. But they're popular, but they're not. It's not at the same level as the other two.
All right, thank you. We have another question from Nikhail. Can we do real-time finance and accounting dashboards using the AI discussed? How do you suggest prevention of hallucinations with AI algorithms?
Yeah, so we can for sure do real-time. So it's the issue is exactly how you do real-time. So there are companies such as like one example is called Bud Financial, and they will give you a real-time feed of people's bank accounts as long as people have agreed to share their bank transaction details, and so that gives you a real-time feed, and therefore you can, the AI models can of course read things in real time. They're incredibly fast. The second part of that question, and I keep forgetting questions.
How do you suggest prevention of hallucinations within AI algorithms?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So then this is the bit that the more and more knowledge that you give a model, just the less it will only hallucinate if it doesn't have relevant information. So as long as you're giving it the right information, it's like it has no need to go outside of its knowledge. So nearly all hallucination is related to the model not having enough knowledge. The model is designed as a people pleaser, where it's going, I must give this person an answer. And it's only when it doesn't have the right knowledge, it'll go, well, I desperately want to give this person an answer, so I'll just make something up and that will make them happy. And so that's the literal cause of hallucination. It'll never make something up if it has relevant information to draw from.
Thanks, Michael. That was fascinating. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. Thank you
Lovely.
so much.
This is a great way to spend lunch. Thank you so much for the invite.